Hey everyone, I'm excited to be here. My name is JT Rose and I'm from Eigen Labs. This morning I'm going to talk to you about a vision for crypto's product market fit, a vision for crypto's use that's 10 years in the making. But first I want to start with a brief introduction of who we are. Again, I'm from Eigen Labs. We're about 90 people. We're in Seattle, Washington. We've raised about $250 million, about half of that from Andreessen Horowitz. Many people know us for having built EigenLayer. It's the largest crypto protocol in the US. It's the third largest in the world behind Aave and Lido. We have $20 billion in restaked assets available for developers who are building, and hundreds of operators running the network around the world. These are companies like Google Cloud, and NTT, Consensus, Coinbase. We've also built EigenDA. EigenDA is the fastest and most adopted data availability protocol on Ethereum. It's used by teams like Mantle and MegaETH, Celo, and the ZK Stack, places where the most ambitious and highest throughput apps in our space are being built. But perhaps most importantly, we have the fastest growing developer ecosystem in crypto, according to Electric Capital. It's a thriving dev ecosystem of current and future unicorns that collectively have raised over $500 million and have a valuation of over $5 billion together. So what are we building? As you know, we started with EigenLayer, and just recently, this past year, you may have heard that we introduced EigenCloud. So what is EigenCloud? As you move from left to right up here, you move from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Solana. What was really happening is the scaling of the underlying verifiable compute. What do I mean by that? Well, Bitcoin built a single application, a $2 trillion asset that could run on a $5 Raspberry Pi. Ethereum came next. It exploded the surface area, the design area of applications on blockchains with smart contracts. It catalyzed the creation of verifiable finance, of DeFi. All of this could run on a $500 laptop. Solana is now coming in and attempting to scale DeFi by running on a $10,000 server. But at EigenCloud, we know that much, much more can be built on blockchains than just DeFi. We're building a $1 billion cloud-scale compute platform to power them. We should be building all of the things that back when I got in crypto in 2016, 2017, we imagined could be rebuilt with smart contracts. We should be building verifiable media feeds that are free of slop. We should be building on-chain equivalents of large apps like Uber that can't rug their users. The single most important thing that we should be building on Ethereum is verifiable AI. We should be building trust directly into the agents that are remaking the internet. Because that's the true TAM for Ethereum. That's why we built EigenCloud. The single most important limitation that we see facing AI founders and the ceiling for AI adoption over the next decade is trust. Without a mechanism to build fully verifiable AI up and down the stack from inference and benchmarking to training and identity, we will never truly hit escape velocity for the agentic era of the internet. We won't quite fully trust it, and AI's trillion-dollar potential and broad adoption will remain throttled. To unlock the apps that Ethereum was built for, that it was meant for, and to enable it to be the home for verifiable AI, Ethereum needs a cloud. And this is not an entirely new observation. Like I said, back when I was in Azure, 2017, 2018, a guy named Joe Lubin, who's wandering around here this week, convinced us that Ethereum would be the substrate for a new class of applications, fully verifiable, fully trusted, incorruptible. Satya Nadella, Mark Russinovich, the leadership team at Azure believed that Ethereum could be an accelerant for some of our early AI bets that we were just getting into the market for by making our compute more trusted. It could help us combat new problems that were just emerging, like fake news and botted social feeds. Some of our biggest customers came to us with ambitious ideas about how they could remake their businesses on smart contracts. New York Times, I remember having a meeting with them. They wanted to build verifiable journalism in the face of fake news. USAID, at the time, wanted to build transparent grants for foreign aid, and GitHub, which is a subsidiary of Microsoft, wanted to completely remake the way that open source software developers were compensated. If you made a code contribution to an open source repo, you should be able to verify that and be compensated for it. There was so much ambition in those early days, but the tech wasn't quite ready. But we knew app dev couldn't happen directly on Ethereum. Ethereum needed a cloud. We thought that it could be Azure, and we spent 2 years building highly programmable, verifiable compute off-chain in Azure. But we actually couldn't make it verifiable. It was only trusted because it came from Microsoft. It wasn't backed by stake. It wasn't backed by cryptography. You had to trust Microsoft to run it, and there was no way to get verifiable data on-chain. So what does EigenCloud do? It lets you run any compute you want and bring the results verifiably on-chain. We pick up where my teams in Microsoft left off, just 8 years later. I know this is a digital asset summit, so let me take a minute to describe a problem. Let me take a second to describe a problem that frustrates every developer that builds on Ethereum. There's this trade-off that developers need to make about how verifiable their compute is. On the far right, if you run an app on chain, say in the AVM, that is by far the most verifiable way to run an app. But the EVM is a painfully constrained developer environment. It's functionally impossible to build any real application, much less things like AI agents, directly on chain. Now, if you build in the cloud, the public cloud, like in Azure, where I used to work, it's way more programmable, but it's not at all verifiable. What do I mean by that? Developers can write code any way that they want. They can pull any software library, they can run specialized hardware and GPUs, they can stream data directly into the app with an API. Blockchain architectures don't allow for any of this, and the reason is they need to maintain something called tight determinism, which means any two nodes on the network will deliver the same result. So the ZK VMs, SVM, EVM, any VM maintains tight control on the execution environment, and they give up programmability. With EigenCloud, you can have both, and you can choose any of these other approaches along the way. You can use enclaves, trusted execution hardware. You can use cryptoeconomic security. You can use ZK proofs and time. Each of these have their own trade-offs for programmability, but this is a massive unlock. And the way we do this is by building on the foundation of Ethereum, but securing the off-chain compute with the Eigen token. So why are we calling this EigenCloud? Well, if you look at the public cloud, the base layer is the data center, a physical centralized store of servers that actually does the computation. And part of the power of a public cloud is the ability to rent highly performant, always-on compute. Our base layer is similar. It's thousands of servers that are run by our operators in EigenLayer. Anyone can stake to run the computation, but many of the stakers and many of the operators are, again, players like Google Cloud, NTT, and Coinbase. The power of the verifiable cloud is the ability to rent highly secure, cryptoeconomically slashable compute with consequences. But no one builds directly against a data center. You have services, you have compute and data and AI. In AWS, these are EC2, S3, and Bedrock. They're offered a la carte. They're built on top of the data center and given to developers to compose and run. In EigenCloud, we have exactly these same services. We have EigenVA for data, we have EigenCompute for verifiable off-chain computation, and we have EigenAI for inference. And these services, when used together, allow developers to build really, really powerful applications that are simply impossible to build either on-chain or in the cloud. So what are these applications? Agentic trading is probably one of the most exciting areas of innovation that we're seeing right now. For those of you who are building FinApps, wallets, exchanges, trading platforms, you're probably experimenting or looking at agentic front ends, agentic advisors or trading agents as a way to encourage new usage. There's a ceiling of adoption here, though, and like I said, it's trust. I may give $100 to an agent to trade within some parameters, but I may not give it $100,000. I'm probably not going to give it my 401k. I probably won't give my kids 529 to it, at least at this point, until I know that the code is running verifiably. I can see that it's following the risk parameters that I set, the instructions that I laid out. Once that's established, there's really no upper bound. It doesn't sleep. There's not a finite number of customers that it can take on, and it can get better over time. Eliza Labs is one of the leading, if not the leading, open source framework for building autonomous AI agents. They've built more than 50,000 agents on the platform, over 1,300 contributors. And just this past month, they enabled their framework to run on EigenCloud so that the agents can run verifiably off-chain. In fact, they've enabled their own trading agent off-chain, where logic, trades, inference, and research that drives the trades is all fully verifiable. Another area is verifiable agent-to-agent payments. Google is leading the way here. Many of you might have seen this in the news. They recently released their A2P agent-to-agent protocol. It enables, in short, agents to find one another and transact financially with one another on the internet using the new X402 spec web standard that was created by Ethereum. But payments are really just part of the problem here. As these agent economies scale, the real challenge for Google and anyone building against this spec is how can one agent verify that another agent actually did what it claimed and it's ready for payment, especially if one agent is executing those things off-chain. That's where EigenCloud comes in. We make agent actions verifiable, proving that every task, every trade, every inference, every computation was done as it was intended. And this opens up brand new possibilities for agents to take over bits of commerce. We can think about agentic service providers and procurement, e-commerce, bank-to-bank settlement, and the like. Coinbase are also pushing the frontier here. For the past year, they've been working on their agent kit. It's an open source toolkit that gives AI agents the ability to have a crypto wallet and to make payments and transact on chain. This is a big step forward for blockchain native agents that can hold assets, that can execute transactions, and that can interact across protocols. But what's needed here is not just for an agent to have a wallet and be able to make payments on chain. What's needed for them to be useful and fully trusted, they have to be able to prove what they're doing off-chain to trigger those on-chain payments. With EigenCompute and EigenAI, Coinbase are extending the verifiability of off-chain aspects of agent behavior for how they think, for how they infer, and how they execute computation for any given task. A final area that we're seeing a lot of innovation in is game development. So Humans versus AI is a mini app on the WorldCoin ecosystem, and they're coming to us with questions about how they can enable brand new gameplay and user experiences. For many game developers, the ability to monetize in-game activity it's limited to whether users trust the outcomes that they're competing for. This is amplified when you're playing against agentic counterparties or agentic competition. But if you can verify the outcomes in game, say that user A, maybe it's an agent, maybe it's a human, did beat user B, then you can open up new frontiers of play, of tournaments, of in-game betting. So now that we've seen a few examples of who's building on EigenCloud, I want to look into what remains to be built. So dozens of teams have approached us about what's possibility, and the design space is pretty massive. Not all these services will be built by us. Like traditional public cloud, many of these will be filled by third-party SaaS providers. Some of them will be built first-party by us. These third-party SaaS providers in our ecosystem are called AVSs, Autonomous Verifiable Services. And in the AI AVS space, there's really three areas of innovation. The first is the brain. These are services that enable fully trusted agentic inference, model training, benchmarking, and the like. The second is agent perception. This is where we need verifiable oracles to allow agents to interact with information in the real world and on the internet. And the third is action. These are services that can verify that an agent actually did what it said it was going to do. This is about intent fulfillment and who the agents are. This is agent identity. Supporting these are a whole set of privacy and preserving primitives and auxiliary compute like coprocessors and event-triggered actions. Early teams have been building in this space for the last year. We have teams in building verifiable machine learning, teams like ELIZA building agent frameworks, WorldCoin and teams building proof of human systems, and then teams like Aether building GPU markets. These AVSs, together with EigenCompute, EigenAI, and EigenDA, create the foundation for a new class of trustless agents that are backed by Ethereum and the Eigen token. And this is just the beginning. We're seeing an explosion of interest from builders across the space. Trading platforms, many of you here are coming, looking to figure out ways to drive new usage. Indie game shops are coming to explore new monetization paths. We've talked with talent agencies that have agentic virtual influencers that are looking to make them more autonomous and even investable. And then a whole range of academics, of musicians, of artists, of social media platforms. You can really feel that we're almost revisiting or recatalyzing some of the energy of 2016, 2017, 2018 Ethereum when people imagined that anything could be reimagined on a smart contract. And all of these businesses are looking for new ways to compete and get an edge with trust built in. I believe we're entering a golden age of innovation at this intersection of crypto and AI. The ambition has been there, it's just been lying dormant. And I think the need for trust is apparent for everyone in this room, but the missing ingredient was verifiability. Verifiability on Ethereum that was reserved historically just for DeFi and for token logic can now be extended to any application via EigenCloud. The next growth driver for crypto will not be DeFi or just DeFi. It's going to be verifiable AI, and it'll happen on Eigen and Ethereum. Thank you all very much.